Hey guys, welcome to book review number 97. Today I will be reviewing Naked and Marooned by Ed Stafford. If the title wasn't backwards, you could see that. Anyway, this is a book similar to the Discovery Channel series, I believe, Naked Castaway, maybe, that has to do with Ed Stafford being dropped on this an uninhabited island in Fiji for 60 days and kind of to see his survival process. It's kind of a very internal book. I mean, obviously, you're not talking about any sort of larger social issues here. You're talking about a very sort of kind of back to nature book, but also a book about kind of the inner workings of man when he's left to his own devices. You know, they say that the mind is a great servant and a terrible master. I mean, that would be true of anybody in isolated circumstance. Matter of fact, towards the end of the book, Ed mentions that somebody told him that the best way that people are engaged in, I guess, the torture industry to get a confession out of people or to break people is just to leave them isolated from other human contact or human interaction. So a large part of the book kind of is Ed dealing with his own sort of self-criticism, his own kind of inability to be happy with his kind of whatever tasks he engaged in throughout the day. He certainly feels loneliness for his wife, and actually it's mentioned in the book, one of the ways that he deals with this is that at sunset, they'll be thinking about each other, the sunset Fijian time. So he doesn't exactly know what time of day it is throughout the day, so it's kind of hard to think about his wife at the same time, but she always knows when his sunset is because she can just look it up online because she's in the quote-unquote real world. And so whenever sunset was for him, he would always think about his wife and think about that. But that's a little, just one example of kind of trying to overcome the isolation that exists when living on a island all by yourself. Now, to the more practical points of surviving, I guess he was dropped on this island with nothing, with no clothes, no food, no knife, no tools. So the first night on the day on the island, I think he's dropped off, midday or whatever. He actually finds a cave and is able to kind of curl up in a cave just with some sand and some basic palm fronds. Now, he does awake numerous times and can't really sleep correctly, but for about the first, I'd say, half to 2/3 of the book, this is his home, this little cave that he finds on the first day. So what are the first things that he absolutely must get? Well, he has to get water because he has to dehydrated. Man can live much longer without food than they can without water. Now, both are a necessity. But basically three eventual ways, but two first ways emerge for him getting water. One, it's a little water seep. He searches the island. There's no rivers. There's no pools. But there is this little tiny water seep that's luckily on his side of the island, very close to the cave, that he can use to get on non-rainy days about 400 milliliters of water. This combined with the coconuts that he initially has trouble getting, but eventually figures out how to get. And the way that he does get the coconuts is he essentially gets a branch that goes like this, that has a Y at the top, and later a Y pointing down like this that he attaches with hibiscus cord, like hibiscus bark cord, that he can push up on the coconut and detach it from, coconut palms are obviously very tall from the top of the coconut palm. But kind of early on in the journey, he definitely struggles. He can't find water. He feels dehydrated. He feels like he's going to faint. He has no fire, so he has to eat raw snails, which I thought was pretty disgusting. If I were to also be critical of him, he finds shelter early on, obviously, with the cave, and he makes a grass skirt for himself early on. That's one of the first things that he does. He tries to find water, which is obviously super important. He tries to find a couple different food sources. His second food source being like hermit crabs that he can easily catch just by kind of stomping his foot down on them. He finds sandals. But one of the things I don't think he did early enough was to make fire. Fire is such a both necessity in terms of cooking food, making sure it's safe, boil water to make that safe. For the most part, it seems like he could drink whatever water there was on the island without too much problems. Though he did have massive dysentery at numerous points throughout the book. I mean, probably maybe like a fifth of his days, he had dysentery on the island, diarrhea and stuff, which of course makes you lose liquid, makes you, also he vomited multiple times, makes you lose nutrients. And you kind of have to start from square one in terms of your energy base. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, I really feel like he could have tried to maybe make fire a little earlier. But when he eventually does get fire, he was thinking that he was just going to test it out. But in testing it out, he actually was able to get an ember going and a fire going. And being a survival expert, quote unquote, if you will, or at least someone that has a lot of outdoor experience and training, he was able to keep that fire going pretty extensively. It never went out to the point that he had to restart the fire. He was always able to take the burned down embers from the fire that he had, like if he was out hunting for the day, push them together, blow on them, and then that would restart the fire along with a little additional small tinder on top of that. Let's see, what else? The fairway trees, that's sort of like his northern light, or northern star, if you want to call it, on the island. It's an unusually large tree that he used to navigate around the island to get his food, to get his water. It should also be mentioned that he filmed this all himself. There wasn't like on some of these survivor shows where they say they're by themselves, but there's really a film crew that's right next to him. He really did this all by himself. And so it took extensive time for him throughout the day to film the series, as well as he had to get, like the dead batteries and the filmed footage to a drop-off point where he wouldn't meet with the people, but he would drop it there, and then at a later point in the day, the crew would come in on a boat, get the materials, and then resupply him with any necessary camera stuff. That was really all he was given on the island up until about the last week when he had to get a antiviral or penicillin or some sort of antibacterial injection for food poisoning. But that was the only point that he had any contact. He also saw somebody that came on the boat to give him the penicillin. But for the most part, he did live, this very sort of subsistence, do it on your own, completely everything from scratch lifestyle. He came out with a knife that he, one of the things I should mention is the number of scavenge material that he found on the island. Now, just because he didn't bring anything to the island doesn't mean that there wasn't man-made stuff that he could use. There were multiple jerry cans, water bottles, tin lids. There was also this big kind of soybean oil tin that apparently, I couldn't really envision it, but I think it was like fairly large. They used as a cooking pot. So he was certainly not against or above scavenging for materials on the island. One of the key things that he eventually kind of made that you wouldn't think is super important, but when you're out kind of not only hunting, but having to make a house, which he eventually made for himself, make other tools from wood that he made, was he eventually created a knife for himself. And the way that he did this is he took the serrated edge of the top of a tin can, or maybe it's the bottom, well, I think it was empty, so he maybe took the bottom edge, I don't know. But then, so took that tin, put it, first I guess he sharpened it against a smooth rock, so just kind of right like this until it got sharp on both sides. And then put it in a piece of wood that he split kind of lengthwise down this way, and then put the piece of metal in that way, and wrapped it with hibiscus bark. It should be said that hibiscus bark was his cordage for the island. It was very important. Everything from fishing lines to all sorts of anything that needed to be wound or tools or like a way to carry things. Um, like he made a spear, and the way that he put the nail head, which he found on the spear, was to wrap that up. It was all very inventive and very cool. Um, I guess kind of the final, as I mentioned, I don't think I really put enough emphasis on how much he struggled early in the book. I said like the coconut prawns, he was eating raw food, all sorts of stuff, but really, dehydration, dysentery, um, heat exhaustion, sunburn, lack of water. I mean, I guess that's dehydration. Just general morale problems. Like, is he going to be able to do this? But by the end of the book, he was really, to the degree that you can when you come up with everything by yourself, he really was thriving. He had actually caught a goat by the end of the book, and it's quite fortuitous because he made a spear, which resulted in nothing. And a lot of times, surviving is just trying things out until some of them work, some of them don't. But really, the death of survival is when you stop trying. So even though you fail a lot, you just try to keep going. So he made a bow and arrow, which didn't work. He made a spear, which didn't work. He made a goat pen. This is all to catch goats. There's a tribe of maybe like 5 or 6 goats on the island, maybe a little more, that, or maybe 10 or whatever, that he was looking to catch for, obviously, food, because he was eating very sort of meager snails, small hermit crabs, different types of roots on the island. But like a full goat really provides the giant protein boost that he would need. But quite fortuitously, a goat actually got trapped in its own horns that he heard, and was able to kind of grisly, just by bludgeoning it to death, kill the goat and get it back to his house and prepare it. But the way that he prepared it, once again, quite fortuitous, the way he prepared it was with this knife that he made, getting a rawhide, getting food, getting chum for like the stuff that was inedible, like the offal. He put in the ocean in a rock pool that attracted fish, and he was able to actually get a fish out of the bait from the offal. He like put a rock pool that goes at low tide, and then he kind of closed what would essentially be like the gate of the rock pool, and that trapped the fish inside. It's pretty cool, pretty inventive. Let's see what else. I mentioned by the end of the book that he made a shelter for himself. That was pretty cool. He took palm fronds, so like this, and then interwove them so that they'd be watertight, and then placed them one right on top of another, numerous. It's not like roofing tiles that are airtight, watertight, but if you make them thick enough, they'll do the job that needs to be done. In general, I'd say, yeah, this is a good book. I mentioned kind of the psychological end of it. I mentioned some of the survival ends of it. It really, I won't say that it reaches to the vast heights of what it means to be human, that occasionally, though for the most part it doesn't, or that it does aspire to. Occasionally, just kind of focusing on what it means to be human. That's just too tough a task to cover. But it is very entertaining, kind of just the day-to-day grind of trying to survive on this desert island. So anyway, check out the TV series, Naked Castaway. I believe it's Naked and Marooned in the United Kingdom, if you guys are watching it there. The book is Naked and Marooned by Ed Stafford. Keep watching, guys, and I'll see you later.